We're prepared to send a small number of additional American military advisors, up to 300, to assess how we can best train, advise, and support Iraqi security forces going forward. I think we always have to guard against mission creep. So let me repeat what I've said in the past. American combat troops are not going to be fighting in Iraq again. The American forces that have been deployed to Iraq do not and will not have a combat mission.
The Commander-in-Chief has authorized Secretary of Defense Chuck Hagel to deploy to Iraq up to 1,500 additional U.S. personnel over the coming months in a non-combat role to expand our advise and assist mission.
Well, 1,500 more U.S. troops added to the U.S. troops already on the ground helping Iraqis, training Iraqis and the Kurds. These troops are said to go to some more dangerous places like Anbar province and Taji, north of Baghdad. And as you look at the timeline here, this is how this has all evolved. June 16th, 275 advisors sent to Iraq. June 30th, 300 more troops sent to secure the airport and the embassy in Baghdad. April 8th, the air campaign begins in Iraq near Mount Sinjar. Remember that operation. September 2nd, 350 more troops sent to protect the diplomatic facilities and personnel. September 10th, 475 more advisors to Iraq. September 22nd, the air campaign starts in Syria. And today, 1,500 more troops authorized to expand and advise and assist the mission in Iraq 3 days after a midterm election, 2 days after a detailed press conference, and Friday afternoon with a paper statement. Let's bring in our panel. Syndicated columnist George Will, Kirsten Powers, USA Today columnist, and syndicated columnist Charles Krauthammer. Charles.
Well, you know, first of all, the timing of this, deeply cynical. Of course, we hear from Pentagon spokesman it's a complete coincidence that it's announced 4 days after an election. As for the substance of this, what the administration really is doing, I mean, it has stated that the objective is to degrade and destroy ISIS. It was clear from the beginning that ISIS in Syria is secure and will not be touched. In fact, Obama himself spoke about this when he was asked about winning, and he made it clear that the objective is simply to hold back ISIS in Iraq.
Let me tee that up.
You want to play
that soundbite from Wednesday.
I think it's too early to say whether we are winning because, as I said at the outset of the ISIL campaign, this is going to be a long-term plan. Remember, our first focus, Ed, here is to drive ISIL out of Iraq. And what we're doing in Syria is, first and foremost, in service of reducing ISIL's capacity to resupply and send troops and then run back in over the Syrian border to eventually reestablish a border between Iraq and Syria so that slowly Iraq regains control of its security and its territory. That is our #1 mission.
And you talked at length about Iraq, never got to the 1,500 troops on Wednesday.
Look, this is a mission contraction. He's admitting essentially in that statement that it's only Iraq that's in play now. The bombing of Syria is mostly for show. But what he's realized is that you can't do this with 300 advisors. In the interim, since the beginning of the timeline you were showing, the ISIS has advanced into Anbar, really to the gates of the Baghdad airport. And in Syria, what's left of the Free Syrian Army just 10 days ago was essentially wiped out in the north. It defected and handed over its weapons to the al-Nusra Front, which is an al-Qaeda affiliate. So Syria, they are writing off. Iraq, they are trying to at least hold the line, and that's why he has to increase these troops. I guarantee you this is only one of a series of increases.
Kirsten.
Well, look, there's no doubt that Americans are mostly opposed to having troops in Iraq, having people on the ground. And I think that the president is sort of trying to thread the needle. He's trying to do something without actually sending combat troops in there. And it's true that we need to have people on the ground there that know what they're doing. Doing airstrikes alone is not enough. We've known that for a long time. I think right now the question is 1,500 people even enough? It just keeps being this sort of piecemeal approach, and it seems like he needs to be all in or all out.
Isn't it the timing a little strange?
I mean, it's not strange. It's transparently political. There's no question that it's just completely political.
There are other wars in our past where advisors were added again and again and again and again.
Truman sent civilian advisors to Vietnam. That's how far back that one began, and it began with advisors. The president has changed his mind, which is what you do when the facts have changed, and the fact is the Islamic State. The spin on this by the admiral who is the Pentagon statement was this is an optimistic move because it means the Iraqi army is at last ready to benefit from the kind of advice we can give, which underscores that second only to the decision to invade Iraq in the first place, our biggest mistake was disbanding the Iraqi army. We spent billions of dollars and years and blood trying to get them to stand them up so we could stand down on all the rest. This is a concession that there's no contemplated or even conceivable tempo of air operations that will do the job. We are to train, advise, and assist. The verb assist can cover a multitude of activities, and the one thing I worry about, and I hope they have planned for this, what happens if one American advisor in uniform is captured by the Islamic State? The Islamic State is, to say no more, pre-Geneva in its approach to warfare.
Yeah. You were going to say?
You were skipping over one tragic mistake, which was that when Obama decided to evacuate Iraq, the war had been won. Anbar province had been secure by the surge. Al-Qaeda had been not just decimated, but humiliated, and the Sunni tribes had joined our side. And we are now back in Anbar. That's where the 1,500 are going.
Not all of them, but some.
Right, and redoing at a scale that is impossible to succeed, whereas Petraeus had the right scale and he did succeed. And now we're going to have to do it all over again, and with extremely low odds of success.
I mean, if I'm a family member of one of these non-combat troops going to Anbar province, I'm in combat. I mean, these guys are...
And the abandonment of Iraq was in no way required. That was a choice Obama made, and it was a tragic mistake.
All right, I want to talk about this meeting very quickly. At the White House, had the meeting with leaders from both parties, was seen in this photo talking to the incoming Senate Majority Leader, or suspected, after that vote happens, Mitch McConnell. Here's a quote from AP describing this meeting. The meeting was tense at times, according to a senior House Republican aide. Senior Democratic leader Harry Reid, about to lose grip on the upper chamber, barely said a word. The aide said at one point, as House Speaker John Boehner was making an argument on immigration, Obama responded that his patience was running out, and Vice President Joe Biden interrupted to ask how long Republicans needed. Obama angrily cut Biden off, the aide said. This doesn't sound like the kumbaya moment all had promised.
Trouble in paradise, I guess. Yeah, it doesn't seem to be starting off too well. And a lot of this is because I think there's such a disconnect between what the White House thinks is going on and what everybody else thinks is going on, meaning the world pretty much recognizes that this was a repudiation of Obama and the White House, and the White House believes that it was not, and that it had nothing to do with Obama, and that it's completely the fault of the Democrats who were running, and they don't feel any obligation to really come together and do kumbaya.
Next up, the Friday lightning round.